Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's Skwawk Talk program on Socialist Telly. I am delighted to be joined by a stellar cast from all the nations of the UK, including Cornwall, this evening, and from Ireland as well. I dare say possibly Brendan will have a word or two to say about certain Labour leaders' interjections at the weekend. I don't know. So I have Brendan Ogilvie, who is a legendary union figure from Ireland. I have Lorna Robertson from up in Scotland with Unite. I've got Ems Rees from Wales, Damo from Cornwall, and I'm here in the Socialist Republic of Liverpool, but technically part of England, so I'll do for that bit. We're here this evening to talk about the Unite contest, which is well underway now with ballots having gone out to the million-plus members of the union in the UK and Ireland. And it's a strange situation because there was a big amount of enthusiasm for Howard Beckett's candidacy. Howard then took one for the team in terms of stepping out of the race because he wanted to consolidate the left vote and make sure that the right doesn't take control of probably the most important union in the country, our two countries. And that was a blow for a lot of people. It's also an opportunity now for the movement to pull together and get behind one candidate in order to make sure that the right doesn't get to do its damage that it's doing in the Labour Party at the minute in the best union in our two countries. So all of the guys on the panel tonight are people who were strongly pro Beckett when Howard was still in the contest, and are now back in Steve Turner. And, that we're going to explore that a little bit as to why they're doing that. And we're looking at that from, not just the point of view of the nations, but also from the different areas of activity of the union, whether that's political, legal, or, Unite's unique community section for people who are not in paid work, which Cornish Damo is representing for us here tonight as well. So, folks, welcome and thank you very much for your time. If you're watching, thank you for your time. Don't forget to do your clicky bits and make sure you subscribe on whichever your preferred social media channels are, so you keep up with what we put out. And do share this and do comment as well, because we'll be fielding some comments from within the various social media feeds as we go through the program as well. So thank you, everybody. And Brendan, let's give the Irish first word in the contest. What you were strongly backing Howard, and now you're backing Steve. What's pushed you from one side to the other, so to speak?
Yes, first of all, agree with Steve and everybody else. It's great to be on the call. Yes, I speak in a personal capacity. I do have various roles, but I've been around the left in Ireland for a good few decades now. The left in England as well, once upon a time. And because I'm on the left is the obvious answer, Steve. I'm backing Steve Turner and Howard Beckett because I'm on the left. And because Steve Turner and Howard Beckett are the only candidates on the ballot paper who are on the left. How do I know that? Well, first of all, it's pretty obvious. They're the only ones that claim to be of the left. So there's an indicator straight away. They're the only one appealing for left votes and calling them left votes. And they're the only, Steve and Howard's backing is the only one who has set out a left. I would call it a socialist. I'm not afraid to use that word. I know you guys aren't, but a lot of people out there are. I would call it a socialist vision. And I'm in the right union because I've got a socialist vision. And I have here in front of me, I don't know how many people sit down on a Sunday evening or a Monday evening with this book in front of me. It's called the Unite Rule Book. Not something that'll keep you awake too long. But it sets out the objects of the union. And the object of the union is set out at Rule 214. And it's to pursue, with a strong political voice, a socialist vision. So the rule book itself tells us exactly what the union is about. And it doesn't just go on. It doesn't just say that in some bland sentence, then specifies how the union must, under rule, address that socialist vision. It talks about pursuing public ownership of important areas of economic activity and services, including health, education, water, fairly famous water protests here in Ireland not too long ago, post, rail, and local passenger transport. So I'm supporting Stephen Howard because I'm of the left. I'm a socialist. I'm in a socialist union, and I want to keep our union left and socialist because that's what I signed up for.
Lorna?
Yeah, probably the same as Brendan. It's about, you know, when we're talking about a political voice, that's what Unite has to be. If we've got no proper opposition, then that is a void that Unite has to fill. And Howard said plenty of times, we are big enough to be in all arenas, and that's where we should absolutely be. We need to be in all arenas, whether that's community. We've got retired members who are really active. You know, they'll join any picket line, community members as well. So it's not just about workplaces. It's not just about, reps, and it's not just about officers. It's absolutely, we have to be everything for everybody, and we are big enough to do that. So from that contention, the reason I'm supporting Steve is because of Howard's manifesto as well. It's a combined manifesto now. We, as part of Howard's campaign and other lay members as well, actually wrote Howard's manifesto with him. So it's something that we've taken ownership of as well. I had a lot of input as well as many other people. We had main writers, but they reached out to people who were contributing to that, and we had a voice in that as a staff side rep, and as an NHS worker I had a voice in that. So it's absolutely ownership of that, and if Steve's taken on that mantle to take forward that manifesto, then I'll be with him there trying to deliver it.
Ems, give us a quick word.
Yeah, well, I echo everything everybody's saying. It's, the Labour Party is there. Is set up by the unions to be a voice in Parliament for the working class, on issues like, health, workers' rights, many issues, which are all socialist policies. So I'm a proud socialist as well. When I first heard Howard speak, I was like, who is this guy? He's amazing. I had the same shiver going down my back the first time I heard Jeremy Corbyn speak. And then I got involved and went on further and further. Obviously, heartbroken and gutted that he pulled out, but obviously I give Howard massive respect for doing what he did. He did take one for the team, and he did do exactly what a socialist does, put the agenda of the many over his own. Not that he had his own agenda, don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean. And now, you've got Steve Turner now. He's taken on Howard Beckett's manifesto, a brilliant manifesto, stuff like Unite TV. I love Unite TV. I think that's one of the best things that's come in, especially in today's, what's going on today in the media. You're getting in today is awful. So, yeah, I'm fully backing Steve Turner now.
And Demo, you never shot up a word or two. Give us one on this.
Don't know what you mean. Socialism, left-wingedness. It's yes, it is exactly what it says on the tin. To be frank, Unite has been doing the lifting for the Labour Party on that score for quite some time. And of course, like everybody here, I was pretty much saying Beckett or bust. I'd lost count of the number of times I'd probably said that, to be honest. But as sad and angry as I felt that the guy that I endorsed, I wanted to win, that he pulled out, the thought of losing my trade union membership is infinitely worse, because as a community member, I get representation with Unite, even though I cannot work in a conventional sense. I have caring responsibilities for two members of my family who are both registered disabled. I've never been shy either on socialist telly here or in any of my other video work in talking about that. I think people, if they feel able to, ought to talk about it more to keep raising awareness of such things, because it isn't as black and white as too many people think as to why people can't work. The right-wing angle has always been work or you're a shirker, work or we'll call you some sort of derogatory term, and it's an intentional attack to convince people that you're somehow worth less. And Unite do not do that. There's a membership for people in a similar situation to me or worse. And you know, I have the benefit of support and protections that trade unionism offers. I am amongst like-minded people, so that just as in work, through a bit of solidarity and collectivism and through strength in numbers, we can fight and campaign for a better deal. And actually, because of the hardships we so often face, we're probably the most active, political, determined bunch of people you could possibly come across within the union, with the possible exception of the retired membership branches. But it's a simple fact now that Howard has stood aside. Steve Turner is literally the only candidate any community members should be looking at. Gerard Coyne wants us binned. We're of no use or value to him. He doesn't want active members. He wants passive ones who won't bother him. The right wing, as I've said, never have anything good to say about us. We're skivers and shirkers and worth less than other people to them. And Sharon Graham is determined to be there for the workplace. This is all you seem to hear from her campaign. So there's no place in her plans for community, therefore, that I can see. We aren't in a workplace, but we still contribute. We still campaign. We're still active. We're political. So maybe that's why she's less interested in us. Apparently she doesn't do politics either. But there's just nothing for me in her campaign, whereas Turner has given the assurances that community will be protected and enhanced, just as Beckett had also pledged. So really, from my perspective, it's all about staying in the union now, still having a union that wants me, that values me, and people like me. And the only way that is guaranteed for community members all over this country is to back Steve Turner. He is the only sensible choice for community membership. So I have cast my vote accordingly.
Very good. We'll come back onto community in a bit more detail shortly, but first I want to take a look at a couple of the other, the other two candidates that are in the contest. Not necessarily with a view to, we are going to scrutinise what they are about. And let's start off with Mr. Gerard Coyne, because he's the hard right winger in the contest. And I'm going to take a little lead on this because I wrote about him extensively back in 2017 and 2018, and know pretty much chapter and verse as to what that guy got up to in the previous contest. And frankly, I'm astonished that he's been allowed into this one, given what he did in the previous one. But we saw, multiple data breaches where two Labour campaigns gave him their data in order to allow him to try to contact everybody. But he used it like an idiot, essentially, because he started just emailing, or his campaign started emailing all and sundry from this list without even apparently checking whether or not they were Unite members. So there were people who weren't Unite members, had never been Unite members, who were getting emails from Gerard Coyne asking them to give him their vote in the Unite leadership contest. There were people who didn't even live in this country and hadn't done for years who were getting emails from him. And then, to cap it all off, he went on to Radio 4, and when they challenged him about these, breaches of the Data Protection Act, I think it was, that was in force at the time, he said, well, yeah, we did use Labour data, but it's okay because it was agreed. Well, the Data Protection Act says you've got to, the person who is the subject of that data record must give their explicit permission for their information to be shared with anybody else or used for any other purpose than what they gave it to an organization for. And the people who had given their data to the Owen Smith campaign in the Labour Party contest, and the people who had given it to their West Midlands mayoral candidate at the time for that contest, had not said you can use this for the Unite leadership as well. And yet they shared that, and the Information Commissioner's Office ruled that Coyne's campaign had breached the Data Protection Act and his responsibility to handle members' data properly. So, if you want that guy in charge of the union, then you need your head looking at. The next thing was, after he lost that election, he then went through hearing after hearing, challenge after challenge, trying to overturn the result. And every time he tried to do that, he went to court against, went to tribunals, etc., against Howard Beckett and his team, for the most part, got his arse handed to him on a plate, and ended up humiliated with, the returning officer and the judge and, whoever else was involved in these judgments, saying, well, we can't find any evidence for what you are accusing Unite of doing, which you were claiming then invalidates the result of the election, but we can find evidence that you were getting up to a lot of this stuff. And, so you got humiliation after humiliation, still wouldn't quit. He's then, his campaign now, and I think it was Jess Phillips that, encapsulated a lot of it. right-wing Labour MP. She went out onto her mailing list again, questions about whether people had given permission for their data to be used for that. But they were getting emails from her saying, please support Gerard Coyne. He's the only one who isn't a full-time official of the union. He's the only one who isn't, supported by a faction. It was this pile of absolute, and we're a working class program, I'm going to call it, was absolute bollocks that was caught in this thing, because he isn't a full-time member of the union, because he got sacked from the union for misusing data. He is backed by every bloody right-wing faction going, and they've said so. And yet in the literature, they're still claiming that he's non-factional. It's just insane. And he has, Howard Beckett went up to Scotland, I think you were at that, Lorna, and took him apart, essentially, because Howard followed him into the West Midlands. When he got the sack, Howard had to take over as the West Midlands Regional Director and clean up an absolute mess that had been left behind by Gerard Coyne, who, for example, hadn't run a union political school in 15 years. And, I'm still struggling to find out what he actually did do in that job. And this is the guy who's now saying, well, I'm not even going to talk about any of that stuff. I'm going to pretend none of it exists. All my supporters are going to pretend it doesn't exist. The media are going to pretend it doesn't exist. And I'm going to ask Unite members to vote for me to run the union. He couldn't run a bloody, proverbial knees up in a brewery. So that's my opinion on Mr. Gerard Coyne and his fitness to be in that race. Anybody else want to chip in? And apologies, I don't like to talk too much in these programs, but that had to be said.
Steve, you forgot to say one more thing as well. He's also backed by the Sun.
Oh, good God! How could I forget that? Yes.
Sorry for swearing. Sorry. I didn't mean it.
Well, he is. He's yes, and he's backed by the Murdoch empire, and by pretty much all of the Labour right. And Rupert Murdoch, the union busting, billionaire owner of right-wing newspapers, wants this guy to be running the union. Now, this, Rupert Murdoch has done his best to destroy unions in the past. And, the Wapping dispute is there on record with people, holding up placards saying they're one of 5,500, 6,000 people who'd been sacked by Rupert Murdoch in order for him to, to get his way, to impose his will. And this guy is now back in Gerard Coyne. That tells you pretty much everything that you need to know. And I thank you for that, because, this guy in charge of a union would be an absolute nightmare.
But Steve, I'd like, if I may, to go even a step deeper than that, and ask, well, what is it all about? Who wants Gerard Coyne heading up this union? To me, Howard Beckett encapsulated it best at the start of his campaign when he spoke about Unite as a force for change within society. When he spoke about Unite being a vehicle for an alternative in terms of the National Health Service that you have there. We don't even have one in Ireland. In terms of workers' rights, and in terms of housing and homelessness and just taxation and anti-racism and anti-fascism. When he spoke about Unite as a vehicle for good within, British and Irish communities and society. And if you take that for what it is, that's what Unite is, and Unite wants to be better. And that's exactly why Unite is in the crosshairs of, the right. It's in the crosshairs of the right because in the neoliberal era, we're engaged in a class war. We're engaged in an historic redistribution of wealth upwards. The greatest distribution of wealth upwards over the last 3 or 4 decades since the era of slavery is what we've been witnessing in the neoliberal era. I call it the post-democratic neoliberal era because of how the media behaves, and we'll get to that maybe at some stage in terms of Unite TV. So we're living in a post-democratic neoliberal era. And here you have an organisation across 5 jurisdictions, including Northern Ireland, with people competing for leadership, with huge resources and huge skills, saying we will be a vehicle for change. Now, for the neoliberals, that has to be crushed. So this is an agenda to disembowel and disempower Unite. When I say Unite, I'm not talking about Unite as the badge on the rule book I read a few minutes ago. I'm talking about disemboweling Unite as a vehicle for good. I'm talking about further disempowering our communities. I'm talking about taking the communities in the Midlands and in the North and in Scotland and Wales and Ireland, particularly in the UK communities, that were disempowered by Blairism. And rather than us as socialists re-engaging and rebuilding those communities, being further disempowered by another layer of Blairites, with Gerard Coyne doing their bidding. And let's not pretend that Gerard Coyne will be jumping on planes, both planes, trains, and automobiles to come over and empower the Irish. And first of all, he won't be that welcome. But to empower the Irish, empower the Scottish. I told you I was going to get in trouble, Steve. To empower the Irish, empower the Welsh, and empower the Scottish. That's not what it's about. They're not about empowerment. They're about disabling the union, taking the union off the battlefield of this class war that I'm talking about, and leaving not just us, but our kids and our grandkids to suffer more at the hands of repressive neoliberal capital. That's what's going on. Gerard Coyne is only their toy. He's only their tool. He's only their handmaid, if you want to put it that way, to pick a modern day popular television. That's what he is. So I think people who understand that and who want decent jobs, who want to be able to own a home, who want to live a long retirement and have a pension, have to understand the neoliberal agenda through the Tories and through the right of the Labour Party don't want you to have any of that. They don't want you to have any of that. They want you to be struggling all of your life and to own nothing. And if you want to fight back, you better put someone in charge of your union that's going to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we are voting for Steve Turner and Howard Beckett. Because the rest isn't a white flag. The rest is a white flag. We've enough white flags on the left.
Yeah, I agree.
I will just disagree with you on one tiny thing there, Brendan, because I don't think they want to crush Unite. It's too obvious. They want to co-opt Unite and gradually absorb it into what they are doing and turn it into a shell of itself, essentially, sucked dry and with nothing left to offer. And that's, so Coyne is actually coming in with this, thing that he's going to bring change. He's going to bring, I can't forget the word, not renewal, but so he's going to essentially change the union for the better. I don't believe for a second he's got any intention of changing the union for the better. He wants to make the union, the poodle of the right and of the establishment that will roll over.
He'll do whatever the rich tell him to do with the union. That's what he'll do. And
so this is this is our take on it. But it's a very minor point. But I think it's that's the plan. Thatcher tried to crush the unions. Coyne wants to turn it into a husk, essentially.
Yeah. Thatcher wanted to crush the unions, but Coyne will do it more subtly. It'll be more like what Starmer has essentially been able to do with Labour. You will see everything that was good that the Corbyn era did with the Labour, the changes, the empowerment, the democracy, the putting power back into the hands of members again. All that has been undone slowly but surely, or attempted to be undone. It would have been done by now if not for lockdowns and no conference. But exactly what's happening in the Labour Party is what Coyne will do with Unite. They want to take the power away from the left. This is one of the last bastions of power of the left that we've got is trade unions. And Unite, massively powerful union as it is, left-wing union that it is, it's got a massive target painted on it. I've been trying to work out for ages why on earth Coyne was so determined to try and overturn Len McCluskey's win over and over again. It's just how desperate are the people that are pushing him to do this. Unite is such a massive, massive threat to neoliberalism and the rot of politics that we've had to put up with for the last 40 years, the erosion of workers' rights that we've had all my life, essentially. I mean, I was born the year before Thatcher got into power. I've known nothing else, and I'm 42 years of age. It's ridiculous, and that will continue if a line is not drawn somewhere. And fundamentally, it's got to be here. It's got to be now. We've lost enough on the left in recent times. We can't afford to keep losing further. We'll never get it back. As Brendan said at the start of the show, it's socialism. It's left. That is what Unite is. That is its founding principles. That's what it is at its core, and it has to remain so. because it is a massive vehicle for the left to lose if we lose it. And there is only one candidate, frankly, that's going to stop this, and it is Steve Turner with Howard Beckett.
Again, Demo, we'll just tweak one point that you made there as well, because I don't think it's the left that they want to take power away from. They want to take power away from everybody that's not them. Yeah. And that's ordinary people, that's non-political people, that's people who didn't frankly give a shit, but could, but joined the union because they thought it might protect them.
I'm terrible for thinking the left, considering the left as everybody who gives a damn about everybody else.
The left is
that's not necessarily true.
The left are the people standing up for those guys as well. That's the key thing. And it's the fact is they want to disempower everybody because that protects their little boats with boatload of interests. And but the people who aren't politically engaged, the people who don't know any different, will get robbed blind and not realize it until it's too late. And it's the left that are standing up. So if you're a member of the union, you consider yourself to be non-political, you still shouldn't be letting these people anywhere near the levers of power within this massive influence for good, because they only want to, somebody's put on here, Martin Blake said Coyne wants to neuter the union. Well, we know what neuter means in its most veterinary sense. And yes, that's pretty much it. He wants to make sure that it doesn't have any balls, spine, or anything else that that it needs to actually stand up to its members. And so that's enough on that waste of space. Let's talk about the other candidate in this, who is Sharon Graham, and you will comment on that. The reason why in a minute, because we're not really interested in kind of attacking Sharon in this. However, we have to hold her up to scrutiny just like anybody else. And, there are issues with the stances that she's taken. So who wants to go first on that?
In a positive way, if I try to do it anyway, you've got three members here from Ireland, Scotland, there, Lorna, and from Wales, and unite. Just a little thing that might not always be understood. I'm from the Republic of Ireland. Proud Irishman. And sometimes in Ireland, and I don't know if it's the same in Scotland or Wales, but certainly sometimes in Ireland, we get a bit of grief from our comrades on the left in other unions for being in Unite. And Unite can be categorised by our friends and comrades here in Ireland as, a British union, an English union sometimes, but mostly a British union. We, of course, call it an Irish and British union. But what it truly is an international union. It's an international union because it runs across 5 jurisdictions and a plethora of islands. Sometimes, though, and this is not a criticism of the existing leadership, who I support a lot, but sometimes, though, it could do better in terms of its approach to the other nations, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland in particular, both parts of Ireland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. It could do better. And of course, Howard identified that originally in his manifesto. He's going to have an Assembly of Nations. He understands, because he's a lawyer, he understands that there's different laws. He understands, for example, in the Republic of Ireland, we don't have any trade union recognition. We don't have even those bland Blairite laws that you got. We don't even have that much. Yet we're trying to campaign as if we have. And he understands that that's just one example. I'm sure Lorna and Ems have examples as well. That for Unite to be really vibrant and really successful, it has to reach out. It has to reach out, be outlooking, and empower people in the Highlands in Scotland, empower people in the valleys in Wales, empower people all across the island of Ireland. It's not just about Holborn. Some people think Unite strong in Holborn, Unite strong. If Unite strong in Holborn, Unite is weak. Unite is strong when it's strong across all of its diversity, be that geographical diversity or be it all the other equality or diversity issues we have. And I have to say, only Steve's campaign, with the joint manifesto with Howard, speaks to those constituents. Only how Steve's campaign promises more empowerment for Ireland, Scotland, and Wales and the islands. Promises in Ireland. And in actual fact, some of the other candidates are saying, no, one of them a couple of weeks ago described, border regionalisation as, quote, a disaster, not just something that they're not in favour of, not just something they're not campaigning on, but an actual disaster. Well, I'm sorry. Our members pay the same contributions as the members in England. Our members are as committed to the union as the members in England. Our members suffer as much from workplace abuses and from government neoliberal ideology as the members in England. And I'm sure the members in Scotland and Wales are exactly the same. So more regionalisation is something to vote for. And somebody who thinks it's a disaster needs to really have a look at themselves.
Lonnie, you got anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think as Brendan says, it's about, well, in Scotland we have our own Scottish executive, which I'm a member of, and I think that gives us a bit of obviously authority over what we do. But for our members, sometimes it is about acting quickly, and with obviously Howard's manifesto about decentralisation, regions will be in charge of their own strike funds, and I think to make those decisions, national making those decisions, is something that's really important for members. And I think when you empower your regions like that, whether it is about having your own executive council or your own rules conference or policy conference, it is about kind of empowering members enough, but to act quickly enough as well. And I think that's a really important issue. The regional strike, I think, is a really important. I think with COIN, I don't think we'll actually have a strike fund. Let's be honest, we'll not have an national strike fund, never mind a regional strike fund. So I don't know what Sharon's commitments are on that, but certainly Steve is no repudiation, just like Len, and I think that is a really important part for members as well, that that they're going to have your back if you make the decision to take industrial action, which nobody does lightly. Absolutely nobody does lightly. It's a last resort, but it has to be afforded to us if that's what members want. So I think that's an important point about COIN's campaign as well, as there will probably be no strike fund, because let's be honest, they're not going to want us to go on strike.
Ems, you look as though you something on the tip of your tongue, or are you just focused?
No. It's just I'm enjoying listening to everybody speak. I'm new to unions myself and unionism, so I'm just sitting here and listening to Lorna and Brendan speak and taking it all in. It's fantastic.
Now the thing that I think we'll move on. We'll talk about community in a bit more depth now, because I think that the striking thing about this election is that both 2/3 of the candidates either appear to have no interest in or being hostile to the unique section of the union that actually brings in people who are not in paid employment. And let's face it, any of us can be out of a job and find ourselves in that situation. If I can find it again here, this was a comment from somebody going by the tag Unite in Birmingham, that said, "We need Unite. It's a home for disabled people looking for help and support, plus comradeship and value." So there are 20,000, give or take, members of Unite community. It allows them to get involved in industrial issues, in political issues. They're some of the most politically kind of motivated people within the and aware people within the union. And it fixes in a situation where the government, and they're quite open about it. The Tories will intentionally create unemployment to keep wages down, and they want to have a certain number of people unemployed. You've got to be able to. You can't afford to just cut off people who find themselves out of work. You've got to give them a route back in to connect and get active, and make their contribution that they want to make. But Sharon Graham's campaign tag is this back to the workplace thing. Okay, so what if you're not in a workplace? What if you're in a sector branch, that's or a geographical branch, which isn't a workplace? What if you're in community, which isn't a workplace? What's her intentions for you? And there doesn't seem to be much really. And I have heard, read supporters of Gerard Coyne, gleeful. That's not too strong a word, I think, at the prospect of him winning, because it would mean the end, as far as they're concerned, of the community section, because they seem deeply hostile to the existence of community, maybe to the existence of poor, disabled, vulnerable carers, whoever else, you know. And I'm going to quickly show a video that I released today on that, which is about 3 minutes long. So bear with me. I'm going to try and talk as little as possible after that. But I think, you know, it's worth having a look at that. And then I want you guys to talk about what you think community can be, and, you know, why, you know, what action people need to take right now if they're going to be, you know, going to protect that and help it to grow as well further. So bear with me on this. Hi, I'm Steve from Skwawk Talk, and it won't stop raining in South Liverpool at the moment, but I didn't want to wait to make this video because I think it's a very important one. So I've taken shelter under the awning of the cafe in South Liverpool. I want to talk to you for a minute about community, not in the wider sense, although it does include that as well, but Unite Community, the union section for people who are not in paid work. And that doesn't mean they're not working. A lot of these people are full-time unpaid carers and do another kind of work which may not get much recognition, but is absolutely vital. And Unite is unique in that it has one of the, you know, well, as far as I'm aware, the only section for people not in paid work in the whole country. And those guys are some of the most politically aware, some of the most politically engaged, some of the most active in their communities, and some of the, you know, the most engaged members in general of a union of 1.whatever million people now. But in the Unite Leadership Contest, there is a difficult situation because 2 out of the 3 candidates appear to have no interest whatsoever in the community section of the union. Now that's really bad news for anybody who believes that engagement in our communities is going to be the way forward in order to, you know, try to make some difference in this country when there's a Labour Party which is committed to not opposing the government. And those guys are essential in my view. But really, well, Sharon Graham, who is campaigning on a back to the workplace message, seems to be all about the workplace and not about political involvement whatsoever. So that leaves out the community members in 2 ways, really, because they're not in a workplace and they're very politically engaged. So she's not appealing to them at all. And, you know, there are worries about what the future of that section will be if she manages to win the contest. Even worse, we have Gerard Coyne, the hard right winger, who appears to, you know, well, certainly his supporters think that he will immediately wind up that section because they don't see any value in it whatsoever. And I've seen quite a number of his supporters actively cheering on the possibility that Unite will no longer have a community section if he manages to win the leadership. They seem to think that people in unpaid caring work, etc., are wastrels and scroungers and not worth their position in the union. That should be just about, you know, servicing a few members in the narrowest way possible. And again, Gerard Coyne is definitely committed to not interfering in Westminster politics and ignoring the political engagement and aspirations of the people who are community members. So I have to say, you know, the one candidate in this contest now, especially now that Howard Beckett has dropped out, who is committed to the future of Unite Community, is Steve Turner. And, you know, I've got to tell you, if you're a community member or you believe in the validity and value of the community section, then you have got to vote Steve Turner for Unite. And, you know, I think it's as simple as that. If you don't vote Steve Turner, Unite probably won't have a community section within 6 months to maximum a couple of years, because the other people who are in the contest have no interest in it or are actively determined to wipe it out. So vote Steve Turner for Unite if you're a community member or you care about community. Thank you. So hopefully that came across at least the sound, and you could make out what it was about. But so Lorna, do you want to come in first on that, and we'll let Demo have last word on this one because he's a member of community.
Yeah, I think Sharon's kind of back to the workplace mantra is obviously excluding community. And as you say, Coyne's got no interest in that. So it is about community and it is about retired members as well. I think they're some of the most politically active. They're always supporting, and they're always out there campaigning about things that affect everybody, whether it's issues, whether it is universal credit. At the moment, it's the £20 uplift. And for us in Unite, we have to be that voice with our community members to protect, you know, society as a wider in a wider position. So I think community have got so much to offer, and I think Unite should recompense them with having, the membership available for them, and they get voting rights in this general secretary election, as they should do. So I think that for that, their voice is just as important as our industrial members. So I think, and it shows that they have a vote. So for me, and they should have a seat at the table, and they should have a voice, and they do in this election.
Brendan?
Yeah, if I could I might take a couple of minutes with this, Steve, because it's very close to my heart. Now, I've been involved in the industrial side of trade unions since I was fighting Thatcher on the picket lines in London in the 1970s, and many disputes since that. But whoever thought up and whoever devised the community model really got to the heart of it, as David Warwick has just said on a post there, on a comment. It connects, through socialism, our work on our communities together. Now, first of all, on the word back should not be in our vocabulary. The word back should not be in a manifesto, should not be in our plans, and should not be in a vision. We shouldn't be looking back to anything. We should only ever be looking forward. And the best way to look forward is to look at how you bring people into the union, into activism, into socialism, into our campaigns, who trade union models in the past may have left out or cast aside. And the community model does that brilliantly. For those of us who believe we're on a journey to try to create a fairer, more equitable world through socialism, that doesn't stop when you're a student. It doesn't stop when you're unemployed. It doesn't stop when you're ill, and it doesn't stop when you're retired. So coming up with a model, low-cost model, to keep people involved in that quest for a better world for us all, for our children and grandchildren, and that's what the community model does. I've got a practical example here that I'll just share with you. And there are lots of them, by the way, hundreds of them, and you'll have hundreds of them as well. But this one is just in my mind. You may or may not know that between 2014 and 2019 in Ireland, we ran a campaign which Unite was at the very, very heart of, called the Right to Water campaign. And it was to try to prevent the installation of water meters and water charges as a conduit to privatizing our water. We got a lot of things wrong in Ireland down through the years. We've managed to keep some key utilities in public ownership. Water is one of them. Electricity is another one. Transport is another one. So we put up a fight. We created this campaign, a human rights-based campaign around the principle of water as a human right. But it was community members in Unite who drove that. And specifically, and there might be some of them watching here tonight, we had a group in Cork, in County Cork, where the Titanic sailed from before it sank, who were called the Cove Water Warriors. And they used to get out. Cove is a little island, and it's up on a height. And they used to get out in the morning, community members of Unite, used to have a spotter, and they used to watch the vans coming into the town to install the water meters. And then they used to let everybody know by text message what housing estate was being targeted that day, so that they could all go. They had vans too, did sandwiches, did music. It was real fun. And they ran that campaign for 4 years. Not a single water meter went in. And that campaign, was hundreds of thousands strong, and beat back 2 government's agendas. And we actually won. We haven't won a lot of campaigns, socio-economic campaigns anyway, but we won that one. And it was Unite community members at the very, very heart of it. And as Lorna says, if there's a strike, if there's a protest, we community members out last week in North Dublin, because they're trying to further racism against travelling communities. Put a wall around them. Don't give them houses, just put a wall around them, lock them off, and build big shopping centres everywhere else. Unite communities are out there reaching out. Unite community are out in Dublin tonight, handing out anti-fascist leaflets in housing estates in Dublin tonight, as I'm talking to you. So anybody that thinks that the Unite community as a model isn't an absolute gift it should be. It needs to be explored further. It needs to be deepened. It's part of the lifeblood of the union, and the only ticket that will protect that, if you're a community member, is to vote Steve Turner in this election.
Well done. We may get an early finish, depends how long Demo wants to go on now on this topic. But Demo, we'll give you the last word on Unite Community, and then we'll see if there's anything else we need to say or bring in as a round off on the program.
I think the points that have been made on this have been exemplary ones, and thank you very much to Brendan and Lorna for making them. Community membership is a godsend, actually. We say quite often on this program that everyone should be in a trade union, but actually it's only Unite, and thanks to the community membership, that actually makes that possible, actually makes that a reality. Anybody can belong in Unite. There is a place for all. And community members are the most active, with the most politically astute, perhaps. Maybe that's because we tend to be on the sharper end of things, like generally. I don't know if you consider me a political person, Steve, at all. But I only became this way because I care for 2 disabled people, and I've been through those work capability assessments and those PIP assessments and the degrading way that you're made to basically jump through hoops and pray to God that you manage to get an assessor that's actually listened to you and actually has some empathy and kindness and isn't just doing the job for the paycheck. So many people are left absolutely destitute when they are in severe hardship through no fault of their own, because, you know, good health is a blessing and not everybody has it. For any candidate in this election to consider community membership, as you know, Brendan has outlined a fantastic example there, how motivated and the things that community members can do, because, you know, they're not at risk of losing a job, perhaps. They're prepared to give their time to a just cause. And and community membership couldn't be better named, because you form a community. You have people in your branches, you have people across the country that you form relationships with, whose back you have, because the strength in numbers, the solidarity, the collectivism that trade unionism empowers us all with. And we go out there and we do an awful lot. And we will do it for industrial branches as well as our own community branches. And I think Steve Turner and Howard Beckett's plans to bring those 2 sides of Unite membership together, to have them working together and influencing each other and supporting each other, will only strengthen the union further. But anybody that's going to come in and start chipping away at the union, chipping bits off, knocking bits out, saying, we don't need you, we don't want you, we don't see the point of you, why are you in a union? This is for workers, not shirkers. It's a disgusting way, it's a disgusting attitude, frankly, that plays into a narrative that has gone on for too long in politics, and for it to infect, because it would be a cancer essentially on the union, for such a thing to come to pass. Gerard Coyne absolutely would do this. As you said earlier, Steve, there are people who are gleeful at the thought of getting rid of people that they see no value and no worth in. We're all worth something. We're all valuable people. And in this union, we all play our part. And I can only back Steve Turner and Howard Beckett as well, because they are the only ones that have any sense of value in community membership. Sharon Graham's position is a strange one. She keeps talking about what she doesn't want to do. I want the workplace. I don't want to be political. Community members are left scratching their heads thinking, well, what on earth would you do for us then? Because we aren't in a workplace. We support workplaces. We support industrial action happening in sectors, and we're there on picket lines and making sandwiches and what have you else, and making banners and placards and just being there visible to highlight a just cause. But what would you do for community members? How do you value them? What is your opinion? We don't know. You said nothing, essentially. And as for the side of things where you don't believe in the political side of things, I'm drawn to the fact that the Tory NHS bill is coming back to the House on Wednesday, and there are over 100,000 NHS workers in Unite, and you say you're not political. So would you just wave a white flag at this Tory bill? Would you not oppose it? Would you just let it go through because you're only worried about the actual workplaces themselves? You can't do it that way because it's only doing half a job. And we as community members, we're there in all aspects of union life, and we play our part, and we cherish the fact that this union has valued us enough to bring us all together and give us a place to call home and actually play a role in society where we feel valued, when for so many parts of society we are not valued and we are looked down on, and that is not fair. And so every community member out there, frankly, has to be voting for Steve Turner. Every community member out there has to be having the conversations with other Unite members, the retired, those in work, whatever sector, whatever part of the country you're in, and tell them, we will only be able to support you if you vote for Steve Turner, because if you don't, we will no longer be there for you. We will be gotten rid of. We're fighting for the very premise of our union now. If Steve Turner does not win this election now, the union will change probably irrevocably, and it will never be the same again. And as powerful and as strong as a union as Unite is, that will be lost. So I am absolutely saying and endorsing, for whatever it's worth, please get out there and vote for Steve Turner. Use your ballot. Tell people they got to make sure they vote as well. Turnout is awful, always awful in these elections, and it's wrong. It's a travesty. We need to be having conversations with everybody. Vote Steve Turner. Cast your ballot. Use your vote, because it's so important this time.
Well said, mate. Well said, everybody tonight. That's been brilliant. I mean, I think I will just say, whatever your position in the union, whether you are, whether you're some kind of officer, whether you are a workplace rep, whether you're a Unite community member, retired, whatever it is, your votes now, your actions are critical. But I will say to community members particularly, right now, in a way that is rare, the power is in your hands, because there are 20,000 Unite community members, give or take, in the union. The expected vote tally of the winner of this election is probably going to be around the 60,000 votes mark. Might be a bit less, might be a touch more, but it's going to be around that. If all of the Unite community members exercise their power and vote for Steve Turner because he's the only one that gives a toss about them, then that could and probably would be decisive in this election. So we're speaking to you. We're speaking to anyone on the left who is wondering where to cast their vote. That it's a no-brainer. It really is, and make use of it, because we don't want to just miss it when it's gone. We want to make sure that it can thrive and grow, and that for the next 5 years, it's going to be there for the people who need it, and therefore the movement, and for the wider population and communities in this country who desperately need somebody to stand up to and shout out about what is going on in this country, and in Ireland as well, and and make the difference. Because I don't know what the situation is over there in Ireland, Brendan, but in this country we haven't got a functioning opposition at the moment, and it needs organisations like Unite to step up and fill that gap, that vacuum, because nobody else is doing it. So on that note, I think we'll finish. We'll just click through the last few comments there and let people make sure people who've had their say get it up on the screen and can see that we're listening. And but the message from this is simple, really. Wherever you live, whatever section of the union that you're in, if you value Unite as an actual worthwhile entity, let alone a force for good in the country, then you need to vote for Steve Turner. And that's the long and the short of it. So thank you ever so much, everybody who's given us your time this evening. Thank you to my panel. Thank you to everybody who has watched. If you're watching on catch up, thank you for that as well. And I will just finish off saying, don't forget, click subscribe, click notifications to make sure you find out the new Socialist Telly output coming out, because there's some great stuff going on all the time, and all completely free, and all completely independent as well. So nobody can claim that this this program tonight is in any way sponsored or funded. The channel stands for itself and is making this decision because it's what we feel is best, for the country, for the movement. So enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and whatever you do, vote Turner, fight the Tories. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Vote Steve.
Bye.
Solidarity.